When you look at contract stalking or gang stalking, you talk about the inner city. One of the first people that comes up is Kenneka Jenkins. And Kenneka Jenkins' case has really an interesting spin on it. Her friends and supposedly a street gang in Chicago were involved in following her around in the neighborhood she lived at. And I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know who was all involved in or what specifically happened, but the word on the street is Kenneka Jenkins was raped and killed by some of her acquaintances. One of the interesting things that comes up is the story of uh, the group being affiliated with the Black Disciples, and the Black Disciples come from a political era with King David, and of course King David came from the Devil Disciples, and he hooked up with Larry Hoover, who was a supreme gangster, and they came together and made the Black Gangster Disciples. And ironically, I have a cousin who is a member of the BDs in Chicago, so that's pretty interesting. But one of the things I came across was before when I was reading the Kenneka Jenkins case, and it was alleged that the BDs were involved. And I'm not saying they were; I wasn't there. I don't know, but they alleged that there was BDs involved. It reminded me of that the Yummy Sandifer case with Tupac Shakur, where it was a younger boy in Chicago back in 1994 that unfortunately got killed. Tupac made a big deal about it, and Tupac at the time was promoting thug life. He was saying, thug life, blah, 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 blah. But he wasn't promoting, in a sense, promoting violence, people killing each other. He was just promoting the concept of his inner city struggle, the inner city struggle that a lot of black youth were going through, of course, at that time and now in some ways, even more so then in the early 90s. But these guys, some guys had got arrested, and I'm not sure, they were from the neighborhood. They were BDs. They were from that neighborhood in Chicago, Black Disciples. And so when I was looking at the Kenneka Jenkins case, I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same neighborhood that was involved with that kid that Tupac was talking about. And the weird thing was, with the Kenneka Jenkins case, there was never any suspects questioned, and that was really strange because there was never any suspects questioned. But usually, when there's a murder and there's alleged gang members on the scene, usually a gang member is the first person you would question. And I'm not the first person to point that out. There's numerous people on YouTube talking about that, and so the Kenneka Jenkins case, she was beaten and raped at a hotel, and nobody was questioned for it, and it's still an unsolved murder. And people want to know what actually happened to Kenneka Jenkins, and everybody's saying now she was being followed around by these people. She was being gang stalked. And, it's like, where were these people at when she was murdered? If she was being followed around by a network of people who were using phone alerts and lookouts and all this stuff, where were they at when she was murdered? And that's one of the big things that people talk about. Almost like when people are under federal surveillance and they end up getting murdered, where was the FBI at? Like Biggie Smalls. A lot of people say Biggie Smalls is still alive, but a lot of people ask the question, if Biggie Smalls was under federal surveillance, where were they at when he was murdered? You know what I mean? But the Kenneka Jenkins case is one of the famous cases for people being targeted by gang stalking and ending up dead. And she was pretty too. Kenneka Jenkins was very pretty. And it's just sad because you see all these videos on YouTube and people are saying, she got raped and beaten up and they found her in a freezer. And, and the police are definitely involved with gang members who are informants. There's a lot of gang members who are informants. And so the police are definitely involved with gang members. And that reminds me of the research I was doing on how they can hire people to participate in these little neighborhood routines. They're not even neighborhood routines. Like, they just literally pay people to follow people. And it's like, what is going on? How can you make gang members and felons familiar with somebody, have them follow somebody? Like, that's organized crime, pretty much. Like I would think if I paid a bunch of felons and gang members to follow somebody, I would think that would I would think that would be a means for some sort of investigation or something. Like what is your agenda? Why would you pay a gang member or a drug dealer to follow somebody? What agenda do you have behind this? You know? Yeah, that's sad with Kanisha. And it's a big thing on the news too. That's not that far from here. Chicago's like 3 hours from here. I don't know, maybe you know, I don't know what happened. But that's one of the cases that comes up when you talk about contract stalking in the inner city of the Kenneka Jenkins case.